when a business is considering undertaking a large scale of the projects, it is common such project may contain certain flexibilities in it. So here is the questions to the company. Would that flexibilities carries value? If yes, how would this value be incorporated into the measurement of payoff, such as net present value of the project? And how are we to derive such value of the flexibility? Hello, my name is Tze Kang, the expert tutor for Advanced Financial Management. This topic explainer is about option pricing theory application in investment decisions. The discussions of this topic explainer pertaining to options pricing theory will be mainly referring to ACCA resources, primarily referring to the study hub. For learning purpose, you may be advised to spend some time going through chapter 13, in particular, section 13.5. For practice purpose, here are ranges of quizzes which pertaining to chapter 13, as well as practice questions, particularly on other revision questions that contain such exercises on options pricing. Furthermore, study questions that will offer another range and types of practices for you to get familiarized on the subject matter. Last but not least, let's not forget about recapping the session by revisiting terminology and explanations on terms pertaining to options. You may see there are ranges of terminology pertaining to this subject matter that is worth spending time to get yourself familiarized with. Last but not least, ranges of technical articles, in particular, two of the articles which is found in the ACCA website. I would highly recommend students to spend time to go through the second one, investment appraisal and real options, which contain ranges of exercises demonstrating ranges of options pricing applications. And let's not forget about going through practices in the practice platform on selected past exam questions. And let's visit what examiner got to say and suggest to improve the future performance of the students. In this video, I will start talking about what exactly is a real options embedded project. Followed by, how are we to measure financial payoff such as net present value of such project? And then is followed by the measurement on the value of such real options that present. Lastly, the video will take you through with the demonstrations and one of the selected past exam questions to apply all the models and techniques that is relevant to these matters. Let's start with what exactly is a real options embedded project. Supposing you're looking at a project to be considered. Most of the time, whatever that we have covered in the previous study are largely projects that come without real options. Well, here are some key features for those projects that do not come alongside with these flexibilities, or we call real options. If the projects are said to be accepted. So what does it mean if it doesn't come with any real option? It simply means this project will have to be completely executed regardless of the outcome. So whether the end result will turn out to be as planned, we have no choice. Once it is accepted, the company will have to fully complete the project. On the reverse is true. At the beginning, if the project is said to be rejected, probably due to a less viable result of the net present value. So that means this project will no longer be possible to be accepted subsequently, regardless of the outcome. Even though it may turn out to be positive, it is too late to turn the head back to accept this project. So these kind of the projects are somehow less flexible because these are all come without real option. Whereas in practice, project, in particular, mega-sized projects or projects that is of large scales, they may be common to expect to include certain terms allowing the company to have certain flexibility to make some changes. So what exactly it meant by that? Let's take a look at this. If there are certain terms or clauses in the project that allows the project owner, namely the company, to have a right. Remember, that is not an obligation. It is just a right awarded to the company to either delay or postpone the project. Alternatively, it may allow the company to follow on or to expand the project. Last but not least, it may allow the company to have the right to drop the project before completion. These three types of flexibilities or rights, in more precise, it is equivalent to, for right to delay, right to postpone the project, it is just like the right to buy the asset subsequently if things turn out to be favorable. Right to buy an asset, in simple, it is termed call option. Whereas, should projects allow the owner to follow on and expand further, that is again another type of right equivalent to the right to buy the asset for more, should circumstances sounds to be viable. That is another type of option equivalent to a call option. However, if a project allows the project owner to abandon, to drop the project before completion, that is equivalent to a right to dispose of, to drop the projects. That seems to be a put option equivalent. It is worth, however, to take note, guys, a project may be possible to contain one of these rights. It is equally possible, however, a project may contain more than one of these rights, which maybe appear in some of the examinations in these subjects. So guys, with all these possibilities to have a right for the project owner to make some changes, these rights would then turn to be a flexibility offer to the project owner to make some changes, even the decision has made at the beginning. Don't you think this flexibility may carry values on it? These values should therefore be included into the net present value of the entire project that come with the real options. So guess what? Don't you think these net present value should naturally be greater? It should be more than the net present value of projects that come without real options as mentioned a moment ago. So that seems to be the rationales behind to tell us the needs and the importance. Since net present value of projects that come with real option will be greater off than the other one that without the real option. Don't you think there's a need to estimate, to derive the value of such flexibility? That gives rise to the need to figure out the value of such rights. So that leads us to the second question, 2A, as a start. How are we to derive the net present value of such project that come with real options embedded into it? Then it will take us through for the next stage of the questions in 2B. So how are we to derive the value of such option or rights? First and foremost, to answer 2A. Firstly, you are required to derive the net present value of the project by ignoring the appearance or the presence of the real option. So that calculation is no different comparing to all the typical net present value that you may have learned before. However, that's not the end. Knowing that it carries value on those flexibility or rights embedded in the project. So you have to therefore decide what is the nature of rights. Is the right representing or equivalent to a call option or a put option, or at the same time, would this project be containing both the option? You then have to derive the value of the option respectively. let's denote as C being the value of the call option, which representing the right to either delay or follow on. Alternatively, we may have to derive the value of the put option if the project carry a right for the owner of the project to abandon it. Once you found this value, it will then add on with the net present value. That will certainly give rise to a larger sale, larger size and scales of net present value for projects that come with real option. It is this measurement of payoff that will lead to decision to be made. So now here comes the questions. How are we to derive the value of these options? That leads us to answer for 2B. There are two major models that will be used to estimate, to derive the value of the option. Collectively, these models are termed as the model for options pricing or models for valuations of options. Well, guys, before we take a look at the detail of the models, it is worth to take note there is no one model that is perfect in deriving a perfectly accurate figure on the value of the option. Hence, while learning up the application of the models, you are highly recommended to well aware of ranges of assumptions that attach with the model. These assumptions serve to be the restriction and limitation when the model can be applied, when the model is less appropriate to apply. So guys, spend some time going through the study hub as well as the article to read up for more detail on these assumptions. So what exactly are the models in use? As mentioned, there are two main models, namely Black-Scholes options pricing. In short, it is called the BSOP. The second model in use, the put-call parity model, PCP. As you may be aware, to apply especially the BSOP model, these are the application on the models to estimate. As you can see, BSOP may be used to estimate either the value of call or the value of put. In the context of the exam of AFM, it is primarily that the call options will be derived for the value using the BSOP instead of the value for the put option. In this topic explainer, the focus is therefore aiming on how are we deriving the value of call option with BSOP. And that obviously relates to estimating the value for the right to delay as well as the right to follow on. Secondly, same notes apply. By right, put-call parity also may be used to derive the value of both call as well as put option. In this context of the exam, the applications of put-call parity is primarily used to derive the value of the put option, P. So this model will be mainly used to estimate the value for the right to abandon. Well, guys, I'm sure you should be aware. In applying particularly the BSOP model, we need 5 key set of variables before we can plug into the formula to derive the values. Let's revisit and recap a little bit what exactly are the key components on the 5 variables that require. PA, it is the price of the asset, or it is simply termed the asset value. PE, the exercise price, followed by time to maturity, or we can say the exercise date of the right. V, the volatility, the fluctuations, particularly on the cash flows that measure by S, standard deviation. Finally, R, the risk-free rate of interest or the risk-free rate of returns, which is RF, that is required. So what exactly are these 5 set of key components for all the 3 types of rights to be estimated? Guys, here are the tables at one glance for your understanding and ease of application. Let's start with right to delay. When you would like to estimate the value of the right to delay a project, the value of the asset is simply refers to the present value of all the deferred cash inflow. This is requiring the calculations of present value of all the future cash flow, bearing in mind. As for exercise price, that represents by the initial investments of the project once we decided to take on the project. Obviously, as for T, V, and R, that represents the years to the delay or deferment, as well as the standard deviations of the cash flow, and finally, the risk-free return as given by the questions. How about the second type of rights, equivalent to call option, the right to follow on? That simply refers to a choice for the company to kickstart, to expand the assets or the project on the larger scales. That simply therefore tells us, in terms of PA, we're talking about, once again, present value of all the follow-on net cash flow. Should the net cash flow is increasing by certain percentage as a result of the follow-on, it is this incremental cash flow that will be turned into present value to represent PA. As for PE, as usual, the initial investment on these follow-on projects. And then, as far as T is concerned, it is the years to the follow-on to be allowed. Finally, volatility, and R is the same as before. Finally, how about the projects that carry rights to abandon? Well, therefore, this tells us, in terms of PA, the value of the asset, what does this comes from? It is mainly made up by the present value of all the future net cash flow after abandoning the projects. So, turning this future cash flow right into the present value would represent the value of the assets itself. And then, in terms of PE, that represented by the selling price, or we can say the agreed proceed from abandonment of the project. The proceeds, the selling price, would therefore be the exercise price. And last but not least, years to abandon or years to disposal of the project, volatility of the cash flow, risk-free return. These are the main component of data required to apply the pre-populated spreadsheet, namely BSOP calculator, to apply the number directly and work out the figures correctly. So before we take a look at the demonstration, guys, it is worth for you to take notes, particularly putting your attention onto ensuring getting the price or the value of the assets correctly, as well as the exercise price correctly. The other three components are pretty much easy and straightforward. It is the two that you have to keep an eye. Before we take a look at the demonstration, some of us may be asking and wondering, value of the assets for all types of option will all have to convert into present value. Don't you think so? By right, the exercise price should also be converted into present value to have a fair comparison. Why is that not a present value over here that mentioned? And the answer is, all these amount that representing the exercise price of all these options, it will also be converting into present value. And that will be done directly into the BSOP formula, which you can find in the formula sheet. You may be aware the element of PE will ultimately multiply, apart from ND2, it will multiply with the exponential discount factor. It is this stage that converts the exercise price into present value so that it will be fair to compare to the asset value that is also in present value, as what we mentioned a moment ago. That's the rationale of getting and gathering all the value as discussed a while ago. So guys, it's the time to take a look at how to apply some of these valuation model to one of the exam questions. Here's the questions to be discussed pertaining to valuations on real options. So in this topic explainer, parts of these questions will be discussed and demonstrated. from the following exam sitting and a case study. Looking at the requirement, I have extracted the requirement and put it into the word processor response option as follows. Looking at the requirement on part A, it is asked the reason why that we may have to include the value of the offer from this company, Kiro, when considering investments B. You may want to read up what exactly is the offer from Kiro, just to let you know. Before watching the video, give a try to attempt the entire questions before watching the rest of the part of the video. Because on this topic explainer, we will be touching selected part of the section pertaining to the computational element on valuing the option. Well, let's hold on aside to figure out what exactly is the offer. Then only you will be able to talk about the reasons of including this into the investments appraisal. The focus is mainly on part B in this part of the video. It is to calculate the net present value. While looking at two parts of the requirement, we have to derive the net present value for investment A as well as the net present value for investments B. It is the B that will be discussed a further detail in this part of the video. As a result, I will leave this to the students to attempt by going back to the spreadsheet with working one and derive the NPV as a common practices. However, what we're focusing is the calculation on the NPV of investment B before considering the offer again from Kiro company. What exactly is the offer? Let's figure out a moment later. Followed by, we have to estimate the net present value of B after considering the offer from Kiro. So again, it is these that we would like to figure out what exactly is so special about the offer from Kiro. So anyway, be prepared to deal with some of the calculations over here. As such, I'm getting ready for working 2 as my support in my spreadsheet. So you should spend time to take a look at what exactly is the background of this company. Parafield company. Well, in short, if you have glanced through these questions before watching this part of the video, in a nutshell, this company is mainly involved in making paraffin that will be used for fighter jets. We are now looking into a replacement on one of its production facility by one of the 2 investment projects, namely, as you saw a moment ago, A, which representing by a traditional technology, and alternatively B, representing by new technology. It is the new technology we're talking about. So put aside some of the features on technology that found in B. What we're talking about is, given that it is a new technology in investment B, it therefore contains a lot of uncertainty about this investment. So therefore, there is this competitor by the name Kiro has approached Parafield company that they may, again, the word may is just a choice, not an obligation, to buy over these production facility from Parafield at the end of the first 3 years. So if you stand from Parafield viewpoint, don't you think, guys, that seems to be the right to abandon. That is the right to dispose of the project to the competitor. So now we know what exactly is the offer about. It is a right for Parafield to abandon the project. That seems to be a put option embedded in investment B. Furthermore, some of the detail for these 2 investments are given in the following exhibit. But before that, let's do not forget about both the investments are all having a useful life of 25 years with the cost of capital of 12%. So based upon this generic information, let's go straight to the 3rd exhibit for more detail in this part of the demonstrations of the video for valuing the options that found in these investments B. So guys, spend some time to take a look at the detail of it. In general, what it tried to say to us, should the company take on investment B, they will require an initial setup cost. It is equivalent to initial investment of $34.6 million. Followed by, it comes with ranges of after-tax free cash flow or net cash flow that are already estimated for us, starting with year 1 worth $1.4 million, followed by estimated changes on the cash flow in year 2, 3, as well as year 4. So then, knowing that this project lasts for 25 years, the cash flow estimated from year 5 onwards until year 25 is same as year 4. So with all this information, that would already provide you ranges of cash flows on investment B. At the same time, discount rate of 12% as well as annuity factors for 25 years is provided. And finally, it then tells us that this competitor may suggest to offer to buy the investment at the start of year 4, in other words, at the end of year 3, by paying to the company Parafield $27 million. So that sounds to be like the exercise price. When Parafield company decide to dispose of the project, that is the proceed they get. So that already tells us out of the 5 key components, we already got 1, which is the exercise price. Then followed by standard deviation, risk-free rate of return. These are pretty much straightforward. So guys, do you notice that there is one key challenge that remaining? That is PA that you have to focus on. So try to figure out the calculation in answering part B of the task. So guys, here is the answer that I produced based upon the information before considering the offer from Kiro with the 2 items of the relevant cash flows that are ranging from year 0 up to year 25. These are the result of the cash flow with the appropriate discount factor as well as annuity factors that apply. I will be able to derive the present value. Adding up all together, that gives rise to my net present value as such. Give a try. That is how we derive the net present value before considering the option. Now, time for us to consider what happened to the NPV after considering the option. As mentioned a moment ago, we have to derive the net present value before considering the option, which is from the above. Then we have to determine the value of the put option, which is carried by the flexibility to abandon the project. Telling the marketing team, this figure is found from the B sub calculator. So from there, let's turn our attention into the B sub calculator while remaining the spreadsheet alongside, as we need some of this figure to be filled into this 5 component in the cell on row 3 in the B sub calculator. As we said a moment ago, we already found out some of this figure, and we only left with the most challenging part, which is PA. So what I would like to do is usually I would like to put in whatever that is easy to earn the marks. So going back to Exhibit 3, I would like to put in whatever I know of. As we have said a moment ago, we may have the right to sell off this entire project to Kiro at the value of 27. So the exercise price will therefore comes to 27. And then, what more that we know of? They say that we may want to sell this at the start of year 4, which is I mentioned a moment ago, that is basically at the end of 3 years later. That seems to tell me the timing to exercise this right, that is 3 full years. Followed by the standard deviations is provided at 40%, so that go under S. Bear in mind, under the B sub calculator, you need to ensure the figure are inserted in decimal. Last but not least, the risk-free rate of return is 5%. That is, in other words, 0.05. So the last figures that we require is therefore, what is the value of the asset? According to what we have mentioned a moment ago, that seems to be the present value of all the future cash flow after abandoning the project. When are we abandoning the project? As the questions already say, we're going to abandon the project by selling to Kiro at the start of year 4. So cash flow that is coming after abandonment is obviously the cash flow from year 4 and onwards. So knowing that year 4 right until year 25, the cash flow is of annuity. So I will therefore take the amount of annuity cash flow of 5.488 multiplied by the annuity factor for year 4 right until year 25, which is already stated on my earlier part of the worksheet. So I will therefore multiply with the annuity factor of 5.441169. That is the cumulative discount factor from year 4 right until year 25. So once I have inserted the value of PA, everything is derived at one glance. What we need is the value of the put option. I will therefore plug the figure in to my main worksheet. So 4.33 million is what we're looking for. By adding up the two of the value, that allows us to derive the value of the NPV after considering the put option. So what you have to do finally is to go back to the word processor by inserting the resulting NPV into the two sections that we have mentioned. What exactly is the NPV before looking at the real option, and what is the resulting NPV after looking at the real option. This is obviously coming to 0.026759 in million of dollar, as well as 4.356759, again millions of dollar. So that is how we carry on to the calculation in the systematic manner with option embedded projects using the B-sub calculator. Well, with this, I hope you have a better idea in dealing with options pricing theory to apply into valuing option embedded investment. With that, thank you for watching.